Hey everybody, so I haven't made a video in a couple days. Thought I would go ahead and make one today. We are in Krakow and we've got an Airbnb for the next week, so we'll be here not about a kilometer away from Old Town in a nice little neighborhood. It's a really nice Airbnb. It's probably the best Airbnb we've stayed at in a long time. It's very comfortable, but we're just kind of waiting it out 1 week at a time, wondering when we can go back to Lviv, because I am confident at this point that we're going to be able to, and we're going to be able to resume our lives and go back and help Ukraine rebuild. And so that is what we are planning on right now. What that's going to look like, I don't know, but what exactly we're going to end up doing, who knows. But today I wanted to talk about a couple of things in the going on in the conflict right now. I've had people living in Kyiv and elsewhere in Ukraine asking me about this stuff because they know it's kind of like my area of expertise. So I'll put in my 2 cents worth. The first thing I want to talk about is the column of vehicles that is forming up outside of Kyiv. I guess the column now stretches for some 60 kilometers, maybe even more, pretty much all along one highway that leads into Kyiv from the north. And the column's been forming up for quite a while now, at least 4 days. It's been growing, and it's just sitting there at the moment. So there was one thread that I read on Twitter by a veteran of the U.S. Army who used to work in a maintenance battalion, and he was talking about how a lot of the Russian vehicles that he's seen abandoned in Ukraine were abandoned for maintenance reasons. Now, when these vehicles try to go off-road, they tend to get stuck in the mud because it is the muddy season right now in Ukraine. And the reason that they get stuck, I mean, these are military vehicles, massive tires. Some of them have caterpillar drives, treads, as we would call them. And the problem is the Russians don't do maintenance. And those huge rubber tires are inflated to a pretty low pressure, and they have to have regular maintenance done on them. If you don't move them at least once a month, the sidewalls of the tires get weak. And when you put them in an off-road condition, they'll pop, the rips will form in the sidewalls of the tires go flat. These vehicles have an automatic inflation system on them, so the tires are like self-inflating, but that system can only compensate for so much leakage. And when they go off-road and the ground isn't flat, there's uneven pressure applied to the surface of the tires, and that system just can't keep up, and the tires go flat and tears form on the sidewalls, and there's no way to reinflate them. And at the rate that Russia is losing vehicles, there is just no way that they have enough tires to repair these vehicles, and so they just get lost. One of the ones that we saw was a Panzer vehicle. I mean, that's $1 million vehicle that they've lost. I don't know how much they cost, but that's an expensive vehicle that they've lost because they didn't do preventative maintenance. And who knows how many of those there are in Ukraine right now. I mean, every day I'm seeing videos on Telegram and Twitter and whatnot of Ukrainians stumbling upon abandoned Russian vehicles, and some of them have been sabotaged, but some of them haven't. Some of them are in perfectly good working condition. Some of them are just out of gas. It reminds me of this World War II film. I don't remember what film it was, but it had a scene in it where the German general is talking to one of his colonels, and the colonel drops this postal packet on the table in front of him that's got American stamps on it. and the colonel opens it up and there's a birthday cake inside. And he says to the German general, you know, the Americans have enough fuel and logistical capacity to deliver birthday cakes to their troops on the front lines, and we don't have enough gas to keep our tanks running. And it really reminds me of what's going on with this Russia-Ukrainian conflict right now, is the Russians just don't have logistics. They thought that this was going to be like Syria, where they were taking on a population that was already, you know, low in morale and not terribly patriotic, and they were just going to walk right in and be welcomed, kind of like the Americans thought they were going to be welcomed, but that's not happening. The Ukraine is not Syria. Ukraine is, you know, for all intents and purposes, almost a first world country. It's got its problems, it's got its corruption, but, you know, it's got a lot of investment to do in education and healthcare. Although the systems are pretty good. They're not great, but they're pretty good. But they've got a robust IT infrastructure. You know, we have internet access at our home that is fiber optic to the home for $10 a month. Everybody's got a cell phone, you know, modern cell phone with 4G service pretty much everywhere in the country. It's a robust and modern economy. And Russia, Putin, is getting really bad information from the people around him, probably because of his insane paranoia. And he just, you know, I think he actually believes his own propaganda and actually believed that Ukraine was some sort of Nazi fascist regime, when nothing could be further from the truth. It is an open and democratic society, and I don't know if there's ever been an example in history where a people have been so united and so motivated to ward off a foreign invader. You know, you've got grandmas and wives and school teachers and everybody in the country doing something. Some of the students from my university are busy making camouflage netting for the military, and you know, large groups of women are coming together to cook so that the Ukrainian military has hot food when they come back to their barracks and their deployment, you know, areas. There's a tremendous amount of self-sacrifice to a level that's, you know, far beyond anything that was seen in America even during World War II. The people are doing everything. Breweries have converted themselves into Molotov cocktail factories, and liquor stores are being opened up. They're pouring out all the alcohol and replacing it with you know, a mixture of gasoline and whatever else they're using to make more Molotov cocktails. There's probably close to 1 million Molotov cocktails waiting for any Russians who want to invade the next major city. So yeah, the Russians have blundered terribly in this. Now, the weakness of that column, going back to the column which I was talking about earlier, is they can't go off-road. They're stuck where they're at, and completely unable to go, you know, anywhere else except on that major highway. And that's basically a 60-kilometer long traffic jam. They're extremely vulnerable to attacks from the sides. They're extremely vulnerable to attacks in the middle of the column, which will separate the column and cause, you know, hours or days of delay when they have to push damaged vehicles out of the way so the other ones can drive through, because they can't drive around them. The vehicles just can't, you know, go off to the side of the highway and drive around them because the mud is too deep, and they haven't been doing their maintenance. So, you know, I read, and you know, who knows? This is all fog of war. Who knows if this is true? But I read that there was a train full of fuel that was supposed to be going to this column that was intercepted by the Ukrainians, and they basically blew up the train. And that fuel's not going to make it there. So that, you know, even if that column, and the column's using fuel every day, it sits there because they have to keep the vehicles running, and you know, these things have huge engines on them. So even when they're at idle, they're using up quite a bit of fuel because it's cold. It still gets below freezing at night, and it's wet and rainy and muddy, and they're in a bad spot there, those Russians. Plus, you know, morale is really low. They've had thousands of troops abandoning their vehicles. Sometimes they sabotage them, but sometimes they don't. And the Ukrainians can just show up, put some gas in it, and then they've got a brand new T-72 or whatever tank. So at this, you know, and then to even think about this column rolling into Kyiv is just absurd. You know, they're going to be driving into a city that is composed of a tremendous number of 20 and 25 story apartment blocks, and every single apartment in Kyiv has a balcony, and people are going to be throwing Molotov cocktails, and they've got plenty of RPGs and javelin missiles to take out units, and they can pop up at any time. And there's only, you can't come into a city like that. Urban warfare is really hard. It is really difficult. And the United States learned that in Iraq, and I guess the Russians didn't take that lesson. So that's my notes on this. And I'm also going to have a short video here in a little bit about another question that a lot of people have been asking me, so be sure to stick around for that. If you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. And Slava Ukraini, Geroyam Slava, and I'll talk to you later.